nerds and nerdettes and wee little nerdlings all. It's your buddy Big Johnny G, the Two Gun Pixie presents Legendary Gaming. Monday is here, and what I want to do is, I've been starting this series. I'm not sure if this is going to be the first one or the second one in the series. That's how I'm phrasing it like that. Not really sure. But I am starting a new sub-series here. Something very specific I'd like to talk about. This is going to be an ongoing mini-series, maxi-series. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But over the years, I've seen a lot of blogs and vlogs about the advice of starting a board game collection. Now, when I first came across this, I was like, I didn't understand it. Because to me, it's just like, see a game, you like it, you get it. But things are different now. There's so much more out there. There's so many even subcategories of board games now. It's much different and larger and better than it was in the 80s. So, to me, I'm very specific. If you haven't noticed, even the way I shelve is very specific. I shelve by theme, by genre. That's what I like to do it. Keeps it categorized, easy to find things. So that's the way I want to approach this concept. There are so many different gamers out there. You like things, I like things. They're not always the same. But we both love gaming. So this series, I'm breaking things down the way I do in categories. So why don't we start this one off with starting your collection, fantasy games. I see you down the table. Thank you so much for joining me here for this Monday monologue where I'm talking about starting a board game collection. And since I like to, as you see, I like to categorize things by themes, as I said, so I'm doing this as such. So you want to start a fantasy board game collection? I have some suggestions for you. Now, I'm going to be placing these in order that I would be looking at them in, and I've got it down to 5. Trust me, I have a few more categories than that, but just trying to pare it down for time. The 5 most important. Well, the first thing I'm going to be looking for in a game is, can it be soloed? Is it specifically a one-player game? Do they have games in this category specifically for one player? Not games that can be played by one player, but that were specifically made, designed, created, published for one player. My second criteria is the same, but asking about 2 players. Now, after that, you get into the more common. The competitive, cooperative, and one versus all. So we're going to take a look and see what games I think fit into those categories that would be good games to start off a fantasy collection with. For solo games, there are 3 that come to my mind. The first one is Unbroken. This is by Ultima Games. It goes about 20 to 30 minutes, maybe a little more for your first game, and its suggested ages are 13 and up. This is a really fun solo dungeon delve experience where you are the last survivor of a party that was wiped out. You have nothing. You've been broken. You have nothing on you. And you have to make your way out. And you have to have fights along the way, and you have to learn how to manage resources and find weapons and make and upgrade the weapons as you go. It is one of the more spectacular resource management games I've ever encountered. And the concept, total party kill, except for you, you're trying to escape. Iron Helm by Grey Gnome Games. It's good for 30 to 45 minutes of playtime, maybe an hour your first game, and is good for ages 12 and up. This is a little similar in nature or concept, but instead of being the last survivor, you're ready to retire, and you want to go out on one last adventure. Solo, so you get it all. You're not sharing any treasure this time. And this game also, there's a bit of management of resources as well as some aspects of deck building that are put into it. And it's a really fun sort of game because both of these actually give you a great sense of being alone with no backup. Yeah, both of them do. Duel of the Dragons is a one-player game, can also play 2 players, so it kind of slides into the next category coming up. And this is a card-based game where each player chooses a dragon, and then there are combat cards. And you're going to be arranging the cards one at a time, turn after turn. You, the opponent, or the AI, the deck you're playing against, will be building up these attacks around your dragon until finally, after, 8 attacks, boom, the big attack comes out. And damage is taken along the way, but that big attack is usually just that. It's wow, it's powerful. And it's a really fun game of combat back and forth. There's no deck building aspects to it. The decks are fixed. They come with the game. You're not chasing down other decks. It is as is. And it's a really fun game. Whether you're playing against the deck or another player, it's a good game to have in your collection. Now, for 2-player games, there are 2 that immediately leapt to my mind. And they fall into also not just fantasy, but the mythology. If you like mythology games. One from Greek mythology and the other one from Norse mythology. Both of them by Osprey Games. Agamemnon, which is a game where you are playing the gods, controlling the fates of the Trojan War. And how you play the fates out, how you pull the strings, will determine the ultimate outcome. And it is a strict head-on-head 2-player only game. It is a battle of wits and strategy. Odins Ravens. This is a strictly 2-player game. Head-to-head style, you are each playing one of Odin's ravens, Hunin or Munin. And as in mythology, your job is to fly around the world and come back to Odin and give him the rundown of everything that's happened. But you guys have been doing it for so long, you made a racing game out of it. Who can go around the world and get back to Odin the fastest. But Loki, who likes to be mischievous, he has little tricks, and he can help you or hinder you. And that's where the real deep strategy of this game comes in, is managing the Loki cards. I think you're going to have fun with that one. Now, moving on to competitive games, there were 3 that I think would be excellent to start off with. Any one of them would be great on the shelf. Legends of Novus by Fundamental Games. This is for 1 to 5 players, plays about 45 to 90 minutes, and is good for ages 12 and up. This is a game of both world exploration and legend building, because that's what you're doing. You're going around the world, exploring different parts of it, having encounters, having fights, actions, finding treasures, doing quests, and ultimately fighting some epic level boss monsters to save the land of Novus. It's as good solo as it is with multiple players. Check it out. Role Player by Thunderworks Games. This is good for 1 to 4 players, runs 60 to 90 minutes, and is listed for ages 10 and up. This game is really hardcore meant for RPGers, because this is all it is making an RPG character. Wow. You're going to get a chance to manipulate dice, roll dice. This is a heavy dice chucking game, but you're also going to be able to build your character up, your alignment. You're going to be getting equipment, skills, talents. It really does. It feels like the ultimate RPG fantasy character creation game. Age of Conan is a fantasy game set in the world of Robert E. Howard. And in this game, you are not playing Conan. You are playing one of the 4 rulers of the ancient world. And you are trying to become all-powerful. You are trying to gain power over the entirety of the land. So it is a war game, a war battle game. But the Conan twist in this is that Conan is in the game. He's a non-player character, an NPC. He's just an AI running around doing his own quests, sometimes getting in your way. But he can also be bribed. He can be bought. His mercenary skills can be sold, and you can manipulate him to hinder the other players. If you like Conan, this game is going to literally make you feel like you are in a Robert E. Howard novel. If you're looking for cooperative games, there are two that leap out to me, completely out to me. One of them is Dungeon Brawler. This is a card-based game by Hypercube Games, good for 1 to 4 players, 30 to 45 minutes, ages 14 and up. Now, this game is set up like a classic 1980s side-scrolling arcade game. It really is. And it does a great job delivering that feel. The way the cards, it's not a board, this card game, the way the cards move, bad guys, good guys, the way they just keep moving towards the center of the screen. It emulates the feel of an 80s arcade side-scroller wonderfully, definitely does, as well as capture an RPG-ish fantasy feel. It might be an interesting game for you to start on your shelf. Legacy of Dragon Hult. This is by Fantasy Flight Games. It is good for 1 to 6 players. Should take 60 to 999 minutes, they advertise. If it takes 1,000 minutes, the game blows up. And it's good for ages 14 and up. This is the kind of board game that takes the classic Endless Quest book or Choose Your Own Adventure novels from the 80s and blows it up into a much huger, larger game system using the same turn-to-page, go here, go there system that made the Endless Quest and Choose Your Own Adventure so popular. And with the adage of RPG characters, of literally making 1 to several characters to play throughout the course of the game, and they will advance, they will become better at their skills and talents. It is a great mix of the 2 things it's trying to grab onto. And that's going to be great on your shelf. Now finally, is there a one versus all? Well, there's a few, but really there's only one that stands out as far as I'm concerned, in the fantasy realm anyway, and that's Descent. Journeys in the Dark. This is also by Fantasy Flight Games, and this game is good for 1 to 5 players if you have the app. Otherwise, 2 minimum will be needed. And it runs for about 120 minutes minimum, and good for ages 14 and up. This has a real great Dungeons & Dragons feel to it. This is a classic dungeon delving board game. Right down to the tiles you use instead of having an actual static board. You got tiles that you can change and rearrange and make different every time. The miniatures for this game look beautiful. You are going to feel like you have just had an adventure with this game. Well, there you go, everyone. Those are some ideas for starting a fantasy board game collection. What game would you put in a starting off fantasy game collection? Put the comment down below and let's find out. Thank you very much for joining me, everyone. I'm your buddy Big Johnny G for Two Gun Pixie Presents, and I am out of here.